As you know, Mr. Secretary, and we've discussed this, DEP is currently updating the St. Andrews State Park Management Plan on Shell Island, which is a precious recreational area in Bay County. A lot of my constituents have reported to me that the current proposed plan by DEP would greatly limit boating access and deter current recreational activities that have been enjoyed for many years, generations, by the resident of Bay County and surrounding area. Could you please comment on the purpose of the Department's plan for Shell Island and what effect this plan might have on the current boating access around Shell Island and the recreational activities enjoyed by the people of Northwest Florida?
Thank you. President Gaetz, in my earlier comments, I referenced the land unit management plan process, and this is something we're required to do by law, and we do those reviews of those parks every 10 years. So that St. Andrews Park is one of our top 5 visited parks, so it's generated quite a bit of interest. But right now, we have absolutely no changes proposed to affect the boating access or any recreational activities currently enjoyed on and around Shell Island.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. In the latest draft plan, which has been circulated around Northwest Florida, and it's been shared with me, the footprint of the park in the draft plan would provide DEP with management authority up to 400 feet out into the water. What's the purpose of DEP's management authority, and will this in any way limit current boating access around the island?
First off, it will not limit boating access around the island. The 400-foot requirement is a requirement of our lease from the Board of Trustees, and we're required to manage out to that area in order to allow our park rangers to address emergency issues, pick up trash, deal with dead fish that might wash up, those types of kind of day-to-day maintenance activities, if you will.
But, Mr. Secretary, are you proposing any new management activities or any restrictions whatsoever that do not now exist within the 400 feet?
No, sir.
All right. It's been suggested to me that the draft plan creates a 470-acre wilderness preserve on Shell Island on which recreational activities would be restricted or prohibited. This new designation appears to include 2 new restrictions: day use only and no trails. That's on page 110 of the draft plan. Can you please explain to what effect this new designation will have on current access to this portion of the state park and access to the rare coastal dune lake that is in this particular area?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. That designation is really for what we call in the park business interpretive purposes. It allows my park rangers to describe the particular uniqueness of that area and the importance that it has to the ecological, to the nesting birds in the area. We have not limited any access that currently exists, but we have said no new trails in the area. We're trying to minimize. It's always a tightrope act as far as human use and then protection of the environment, and how do we walk that line, and we felt that this was a good way to address that in this particular park.
So, Mr. Secretary, the term 470-acre wilderness preserve is only meant to indicate that there will be no new trails cut? Is it your testimony that all current activities, recreational activities, within that 470 acres would continue to exist and that there would be no new restrictions?
That's correct.
All right. In the center of Shell Island, there's a residential subdivision, and DEP owns a portion of the lots. Can't remember how many lots. The rest are privately owned, and public access roads owned by Bay County fragment the entire subdivision. And as you know, the Bay County Commission has indicated that it has no desire to acquire more county-owned land on Shell Island. Your current draft plan states that DEP will survey all the lots in the subdivision and then demarc the park boundary, and this is on pages 79 and 80 of the plan. Does DEP intend to limit access to any of these public roads or private properties, and do you have any intention of acquiring additional private property on Shell Island?
Mr. Chairman, at this time we have no intention of acquiring any additional. It's always good if we have the ability to fill in, as they say, the hole in the donut. but we have no intention moving forward with acquisition at this point in time. And I'm a huge private property rights fanatic, if you will, and so that proper demarcation of those boundaries is actually there to help preserve the property rights of the other property owners, then also help my park rangers determine how best to manage the park property, because we don't want to have burns that go over into other people's lands. There's a lot of intricacies that go on there, but at this time we are not affecting anyone's private property rights.
And so you have no intention, and your plan will provide no limits to access to any of these public roads or properties. Is that correct?
Absolutely not.
The draft plan also implies the DEP's goal is to acquire the Bay County roads that run through the subdivision on the island. This is on page 114 of the draft plan. Considering, as I mentioned, Bay County's resolution in September last, stating their intention to retain ownership of their county roads, would it be DEP's intention to remove this request from your draft plan?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I don't believe we have any intention of removing the request, but also at this time, we don't have any intention of acquiring any more lands within there. But when you look at a park boundary and you see, as I said, that hole in the donut, say, if we could fill that in, that'd be great, but that's going to take a willing seller. That's going to take the county wanting to turn over those properties and any of those property owners wanting to sell to the state. And at this time, I'm unaware of any such request.
But it is not, is it the department's intention to put pressure on the county or on any private property owners to turn their land over to the DEP, is it?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely not.
When can we anticipate that DEP will move forward with a final plan, and will the plan be consistent with the testimony that you have given in today's meeting?
Mr. Chairman, since I raised my right hand, I can absolutely guarantee you that it will be consistent. We are closing in on that plan hopefully for the week of March 14th, and it's also anticipated that the final plan will go to what we call the ARC Council, the Acquisition Restoration Council, on April 22nd and be on their agenda. And
finally, Mr. Chairman, and I'm so grateful for your indulgence in my questions. These are issues important to the people of Northwest Florida. When DEP develops its final proposed plan, and I understand you have to go to the ARC before it becomes effective, but once you put your stamp and said this is DEP's proposed plan for Shell Island, would you be willing to either personally or have your deputy secretary meet in public with the Friends of Shell Island and recreational boaters and other interested citizens to walk through the plan and to provide to them the same assurances and representations that you provided to this committee today?
Absolutely, Senator. Public outreach and building on those partnerships is so important to so much that we do. I would absolutely welcome that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Are there any other questions? Senator Clemens, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I also be recognized for a series such
You're
as?
recognized for a series of questions.
Thank you so much. I wanted to follow up on Senator Gaetz' question regarding fracking.